Right, I just want to give you a heads up of what to expect for the up and coming PSY COM Zoom lecture that will take place on the 2nd of May. So probably going to repeat it on a different time slot, so those of you overseas can take part if you want. But basically it's going to cover two primary components that relate to the psychology of violence. The first being state management. So control of the emotional responses that you're likely to get during a potentially violent situation. So gathering management of adrenaline and what you will misinterpret as fear. Learning how to recognise and control denial. Also a knee-jerk response, how to control that. How to control red mist or anger. So state management would relate to controlling fear, adrenaline, pain, fatigue, disorientation, but also having a knee-jerk response so that you overreact, or red mist so that you just lose the plot. These would be examples of state management. The next element that relates to the psychology relating to violence is state access. So having the ability to access a high level of awareness and observation. So you're most likely to spot any pre-threat cue precursor. Having the ability to maintain a high level of confidence. So you can control the adrenal response, and in the best world, particularly that of a tier 1 civilian, that you control the adrenal state to the point where you can still remain cognitive, which all comes down to controlling the heart rate and staying calm. But state access would be accessing a high level of awareness, high level of confidence, and when the fight dynamic's about to start, or when you must engage, accessing cold clinical aggression that you can switch on like a light switch, deal with the problem, and then switch back off. Very different to red mist. So think of an attack trained war dog that's given the command of attack and then stops as soon as the job's done. So having the ability to control emotional state and access emotional state, that would be most useful during the full spectrum of a violent assault. That's the first component. Second component of PSY COM really comes down to Sun Tzu's very famous quote of know your enemy and know yourself. So first of all, knowing yourself, looking deeply at self-awareness, what your current capability is to access a high level of antisocial behaviour and aggression, what your current ability is to be willing to employ a severe level of aggression and violence that will totally eclipse what you're facing. Okay, so the biggest part in terms of your self-awareness begins with getting a realization of how the potential threat that you're likely to face in today's society, and particularly for those that take advantage of current situations, could be up to and including deadly force. So first of all, you have to have the realization that you could plausibly face a lethal threat. The next is understanding the extremities of levels of violence that people are willing to go to, and the desensitization that many have in terms of their willingness to employ violence. The next part of that would be, where do you stand right now currently in being able to deal with that? So you'd have to understand that there'd be a need for you to access a level of aggression and violence potentially in a life-threatening situation like that would totally eclipse theirs. So where do you stand with that right now? One good way to contemplate the importance of that is to develop your belief system. So you need a belief system. So know what you're willing to fight for, know what you're willing to potentially die for, know what you're willing potentially to kill for in order to protect. Deep questions that you need to ask yourself on a deep level. All content that we talk about is in line with context that you're most likely to face. So we look at methods in which you can train to access high levels of aggression. We look at methods in which you could potentially discover where you stand in your willingness to take part, particularly if you contemplate loss of yourself, a way that you never see another full moon, you never see another sunset, you never achieve another goal, you never take another holiday, you never do another thing. If you lose, if you're gone, and if that doesn't help you find righteous indignation, which is a gift from our Creator in order to self-preserve life, if you like, if you can't find it from that, then maybe contemplating loss of you and how that would affect a significant other. So we go very deeply into the psychology of violence, namely state management, how to control emotions under fight duress, state access, the most useful, conducive emotional states that you would want to be in order to deal with the full spectrum of a violent assault. We look at the physiological effects of adrenaline on the body and how you may negate some of them via expectation, and we also look at knowing yourself and knowing the enemy. So overall, the psychology lecture, which will be about 2 to 2.5 hours, is a very essential component to a combatives trainee, often considered the missing link. So if you can, join us for that event on the 2nd. If you can't, it will be run again at some point for another time slot, but yeah, really suggest you get on it. Peace.